il a pas le temps.
Yes, fold it like the accordion's folding up and we do two pieces.
Eh oui, c'est ce que tu m'as demandé. Let's fold like this. Okay, so we're going to fold on the dark dotted line.
One of my favorite animals is beavers. So I decided that I would write a book about beavers, and it would be a lot more interesting if I also took pictures. So I took pictures of beavers to go with the words that I wrote. And this is called The Beaver's Busy Year. Did you know that beavers are mammals just like you and me? They have some hair, the mothers produce milk for their young, and most give birth to live young. Beavers are a kind of mammal called a rodent. Hazel, can you hold the skull box up for everybody to see behind you? This is the skull of a beaver. In fact, it's the same skull that's in this picture. Thank you very much. Mice, chipmunks, squirrels, woodchucks, and porcupines are also rodents. They all have 4 big front teeth called incisors that never stop growing. They're orange in a beaver. They're orange in most rodents, not woodchucks, but I think every other rodent. Can you find the incisors in the skull that Hazel's holding? See them? Yes. Something really interesting is, you know how they never stop growing. They get longer and longer and longer. So we have, what do we do when our nails grow? We
Clip them.
Yeah, we clip them. We use a nail file or clippers. Well,
They don't have nail
that's
clippers.
right. So what do they do to keep their teeth pared down?
They chomp down trees.
Exactly.
And it also helps them to build a home too.
Yes, it does. And the neat thing is, see how the orange, it's orange on one side of the incisors and it's white on behind? Well, the orange is enamel and it's really hard.
Yeah, but the white is soft.
Yes!
To weigh out the teeth, and the orange is hollow to bend it.
That's
and keep
right.
it
So the
sharp.
back white part, the dentin, wears down and the hard enamel doesn't. So it makes their teeth very pointed, sort of sharper. Yes, like chisels. And it lets them cut trees down and eat bark off trees. And they also eat lots of plants, small plants. Thank you, Hazel. You can put it down. Thank you. Beavers use their incisors to cut down trees, to cut the trees into pieces, and to eat the bark. This helps to keep the incisors from growing too long. When do they do most of this work, do you think? Why don't we see beavers more often?
In the autumn?
Yeah, they're very busy in the autumn, but yes.
They go to their lodge.
They're in their lodge a lot, but when they're cutting trees down, they're right.
In the forest.
Yes, but why don't we see more of them?
Because they're camouflaged.
They're camouflaged and they're cutting down trees while you and I are sleeping. They're what you call nocturnal. They're awake at night and they sleep in the lodge during the day.
Like raccoons and bats?
Yes! Excellent, Seamus.
And owls?
And owls. Beavers are good recyclers. They chew and eat the bark of the sticks. They don't eat the sticks themselves. They eat just the bark. And then they use the sticks to build a dam across a stream. The dam stops the water from flowing and turns the stream into a pond. So beavers are builders. They have to make their ponds. And they make their ponds by piling up sticks across a stream. Beavers also use sticks. They've eaten most of the bark off, so then they use these sticks to build a home called a lodge. They make a pile of sticks and mud on the bottom of the pond that is so big it pokes up out of the water. Then the beavers chew a room inside the pile of sticks. This is as if you cut a lodge in half. This is what you would see. The beaver comes in, swims into the lodge, and comes up here. I'll show you a picture in a minute. The room is always above water and dry. This is where the beavers live. Each lodge usually has more than one door or entrance. The doors to a lodge are underwater. Why would a beaver make its doors so that you'd have to swim to get into the
So
door?
predators can get in.
Yeah, like
Seamus.
foxes and wolves.
You know too much. Yes, no, you don't know too much. You can never know too much. You're absolutely right. A lot of predators, like what might eat a beaver? A coyote might eat a beaver.
wolf.
In fact, but you know what? Right in Hanover, several years ago, there were tracks of a beaver and a coyote, and there was
A bobcat.
there was a dead coyote. The beaver had bitten the coyote and killed it.
When it's in the
But that was in winter, and it was surprisingly out of its lodge. The doors to a lodge are underwater, so many of the beaver's enemies, like coyotes and wolves, can't get to them. Beavers spend a lot of time in the water. In addition to having thick fur that keeps them warm, beavers have valves in their ears and their noses that close when they go underwater. So as soon as a beaver dives down into the water, those valves shut, both in its nose and its ears. It's just like having a nose clip. You know how sometimes people wear clips when they wear earplugs,
When they
go underwater.
change, sometimes people change the garbage and they have.
Oh, yeah, they probably do. Beavers have special see-through eyelids that serve as goggles when they go underwater. They're called nictitating membranes. Birds have them too. And you know how we have two eyelids and they go up and down? Well, beavers have an eyelid that goes across like a windshield wiper, and it's totally see-through. And when they go underwater, that third eyelid moves across their eye and protects it from sticks and stuff in the water that they don't want to get in their eye. When swimming, beavers steer with their tail and paddle with their webbed hind feet.
This over here.
It's really
Unfortunately, yes, that's their tail. In the fall, beavers get ready for winter. They are very busy adding sticks and mud to their dam and lodge. They also gather a supply of food. Beavers cut down trees and make a pile of branches in the pond near their lodge. They will eat from this pile when the pond is iced over. Think of when it gets cold and the pond is covered with ice. The beavers can swim out of their lodge, but can they get on top of the ice? Not if it's really cold and it's completely frozen over. So whatever they have to eat has to be under the ice. So in the fall, they make this big pile of branches right near their lodge, and it usually sticks up out of the water. So in the fall, you can actually see the top of their winter food pile. And then in the winter, when they get hungry, they swim out of their lodge. They cut off a piece of a branch, and then they swim back in the lodge where they eat it. They eat the bark right here, and when they've eaten the bark, they just toss the stick back into the water down the entrance hole. And in the spring, a beaver pond is covered with floating sticks that have no bark on them because the beavers have tossed them out into the water.
Cool.
I always wanted to know what the inside of a beaver lodge looked like. So one day, I went to a beaver lodge where the dam had broken, so there was no water in the pond anymore, and I climbed into the lodge. It's a very tight fit, believe me. It's about, it's not even as wide as this table, and it's about 3 feet high. So you have to squeeze in there. And I heard, I don't know if this is true, and I can't remember his name, but there was somebody out west. Oh, it was the man who discovered Yellowstone. Have you heard of Yellowstone Park? Well, he was being chased by Native Americans, and they wanted to kill him. So he had to think fast, and you know what he...
Hid in a beaver lodge?
Yes! He hid in a beaver lodge, and he was safe. They didn't catch him. Beavers spend a lot of time in their dark lodge in the winter. Sometimes there can be 10 or more beavers living in one lodge.
In that tiny little space.
Yes. They have
So soft.
what you could sort of see in here. They have one level where they eat, and they have a higher level where they sleep. But think of it, it's dark and it's wet and damp because they've come in from swimming. I'm not sure I would want to live in a beaver lodge. Once ice forms on top of the pond, the beavers can not get onto land to cut down any more trees. They swim to their food pile under the ice and carry branches back to the lodge to eat. As the weather warms and the ice thins, the beavers use their heads to bump through the ice. Then they could see the sun and eat fresh bark once again. I think one of the most fun things I've ever seen is it was early spring. The ice was just starting to melt, so it was thin in places, and I watched a beaver go boom, and up came a little ice and a little top of his head, and then it bumped again.
Like that?
And it bumped through, yes, so he popped up through the ice, and then he held on to the ice with his front feet. They are so excited to get out of that dark lodge that they're out of the pond as soon as they can get there. In the spring, the mother beaver gives birth to between 2 and 4 baby beavers called kits. Later in the summer, the kits go outside the lodge with the parents. You don't see them, they're often not even there yet, even though they were born a month or 2 ago. They wait till they're a little bit older. And sometimes a friend of mine saw, just about this time of year, a mother beaver with her little beaver riding on its tail as she swam along. Kits live with their parents until they are 2 years old. Can you imagine leaving your parents when you were 2? But beavers do. Then they leave the lodge to find a mate and a stream that they can turn into their own pond. So just before the mother beaver gives birth, she kicks the 2-year-olds out. So they're on their own. And they either have to find a beaver pond that's been abandoned, or they have to dam up a stream for their own pond. Yes, Hazel?
Being 2 for a beaver is like you being a grown-up.
Yes, you're right. Thank you. When summer comes, there are lots of green plants for beavers to eat. They work on their lodge and dam in the spring and fall, so there isn't much heavy work for beavers to do in the summer. Did somebody have a question? Yeah.
The beavers have to go, how do the chief have to do or the work to the dam?
How do they do the work to build the dam?
They cut down trees and cut the branches off the trees.
They're inside, there's these red
Thank you, Hazel. Thank you. They cut them with their sharp teeth, and they eat the bark, and then they carry the branch to where they want the dam to be.
And how?
How? They usually carry the branches with their mouth, just like Hazel was showing, in their mouth. They can use their paws, but it's like...
With its kittens?
Yeah, right. They also, when they're carrying mud, because a lot of a beaver lodge and dam is mud, they stick mud under their chin, and sometimes they use their hands, but usually it's just tucked up under here, and then when they get to the bank, to the den or the lodge or the dam, then they unload the dam. But usually they swim with their front feet all balled up on their chest. They only use their back feet to swim. So summer, now is when beavers are having a great time. They don't have to work much at all. Yes. Is there another question?
What did you say the mother does when the kids turn to get them out of the dam?
Well, I said they booted them out, and that's not really true. No, the scientists don't know whether the parent beavers push them out of the lodge or whether they leave on their own. But they do leave when they're 2. And I don't know how they actually get them to leave. That's a very interesting question.
I know about that because I read a book about horses, and for being grown up, horses are 5.
Oh, is that right? Oh, that's very interesting.
I love grown. If
You're
I were a
you
house,
being grown up, yeah.
I'd be a grown up.
Yes. When beavers aren't eating or swimming, they are often grooming themselves and each other. Does anybody know what grooming means?
Cleaning themselves.
Cleaning themselves, right, like when we take a bath and we brush our hair.
Our chickens clean themselves. They get
Yes.
the dirt out.
Yes. They usually groom with their feet. The two inside toenails on a beaver's hind foot are split. Beavers use these nails to comb through tangled fur and to rub oil from their bodies into their fur to make it waterproof. Sometimes they use these nails to remove splinters from between their teeth. Can you see this nail and how it's split right here? Just like a comb. And that's what this beaver's doing. It's using its front feet as well, and it also used its hind feet. But the oil comes from down here, and they just smear it all through their fur. They take dirt baths too, don't they? Get in the dusty. Yeah.
So the bugs won't get on in their.
So that it won't. Yeah, exactly.
Eggs.
When fall arrives again, beavers dive back into their work in order to get ready for winter. Are those front feet or hind feet we're looking at? Yeah, those are the beaver's hind feet. They're wet. The front feet aren't. And I won't keep you with this, but if you have this book, you know that in the back there are lots of games to play. You match some pictures with other pictures, or pictures with descriptions, and there's lots of information about all the different animals. You know, when a beaver makes a pond, it doesn't just make a home for beavers. It makes a home for lots of other animals. Can you think of other animals that live in a beaver pond or near? Frogs.
Then fish.
Toads come to lay eggs. Fish, that's right. Tadpoles. How about
And otters.
otters? Yes.
Mosquitoes.
Excellent. Mosquitoes. How about wood ducks and tree swallows?
Mosquitoes don't like moving water.
Yes,
Or
you're
else,
right.
Their eggs will be swept away.
Yes, you're absolutely right. That's why you shouldn't keep
Here.
holes. Oh. Did you want me to read that too? I'm supposed to read again in half an hour or so. I know. They want this to stretch for a little while. Sorry.
I'll bring down the okay.
Any questions or yeah?
How does a beaver fetch with its tail?
It lifts it up and then slaps it down on the water. And it does it really fast. It's really, I tried to get a picture of a beaver slapping its tail, and there's one here, it's not great. But they do it so fast. That's when it goes up in the air, and then it comes down on the water. And then they do it, sometimes they do it many, many times.
They do it very loud, so
Yes.
the other beavers do it, and then they can slap it.
Yep.
Yeah.
You know what else they do? In the fall, they store fat in their tail that they use to keep warm in the winter. And in the summer, a lot of their heat goes out of their tail. So it keeps them cool.